What is up, my fellow parents? And if you're listening to this, then just congratulations. You made it through a summer, and congratulations. You've got kids who want to go to school, who are going to school. Your kids are only going to be this age for one day. So let's celebrate it. Let's rejoice. It can be really hard raising kids, but it can be so wonderful. And now it's time to get ready for an important transition, and it's called back to school. It's actually a pretty important transition for kids, Jordan.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you said one thing, and I'm scratching my head. You said kids are excited to go back to school, which maybe some are, but it's like I always remember that feeling of back to school where I was a little excited, but I was also horrified at the same time. The idea of schoolwork and teachers and just stress. And then but I get to have fun and I get to play sports. I get to hang out with my friends. So it's like really double-edged sword.
That's why we're making this podcast, because for some kids, it's a really hard time of the year. And for some parents, it's a really hard time of the year. So let's just help these kids with their transitions. Let's help them. And so I think what we're going to do today, everybody, is Jordan and I are just going to share some tips with you. It's going to be a really short, fast-paced podcast episode. And I think some of the things you're going to hear are going to be like, oh, yeah, I got that. I didn't need to be reminded of that. And some of them are going to be new. Like Jordan was telling me about some of the things he's going to be sharing on this. Like, oh, that's really good. I haven't thought about that. So whether you've been like raising kids for a long time or you got young kids and you're just kind of getting into your routines, this episode is for you. So Jordan, let's get it started. Tell us some tips for back to school.
All right. The first tip is something me and Sean went to right away.
Number one for both of us.
Top of the list charts, right? It's basically you're getting ready from the summertime chaos. Go to bed at a late time, watch movies, eat snacks and junk food, go play with your friends all night. But then we have to get more orderly. So it's all about the bedtime routine. And my thought is you got to start this thing early, whether it's a week before school starts, 2 weeks before school starts. But what I think that's more important, Sean, into going through the bedtime routine is setting the expectations for that routine. Because you spring it up on your kids. Hey, Mom, Dad, it's the last weekend before school. Can we have a sleepover? And you're like, shoot, I should have talked to you because I have this rule in my head where I have to get you guys back to program ready, and they're like, wait, but it's just the last weekend
That's
of
what
summer.
our kids are going to say.
So you got to set those expectations.
I want to stay up extra late. It's my last week to stay up late playing video games or hanging out with my friends, right? Yeah, that is so key, but easier said than done. Like, how do you think realistically, like people like us talk about this, but realistically, how hard would that be to do a week before school?
So for us, what we did, let me talk about what it's like with the littlest kid first, because he's going from preschool to kindergarten. And so we just cut his naps. And he was exhausted. By 3 o'clock, he was like falling asleep. Like, nope, stay awake. I'm shaking baby syndrome trying to keep him awake. So that he could go to bed at like 6 or 7 and then sleep through the night. Because when he goes to kindergarten, dude, there's no naps in our kindergarten. I don't know how many of you have naps in kindergarten, but we don't. So we had to cut him of that, and then it was easy for him. Now for the twins, they're 10, going to be 11. They're going into 5th grade. We just had to set expectations. What I did is I actually set the alarm in the morning, and just said, okay, time to get up, early, so that they were tired earlier.
Because, so much of good parenting has to do with getting our kids and teenagers to sleep and eat well. The National Sleep Foundation recommends children ages 6 through 13 years old sleep between 9 and 11 hours, and teenagers ages 14 to 17 should get 8 to 10. That's a lot of sleeping, everybody. 9 to 11, 8 to 10. So we need to get our kids in bed, get them sleeping,
but it's
and
important.
Get these transitions well so that they have that first week or that first 2 days a week off school. All right, I got a tip for you. All right, so I think here I am. I'm 46 now. I just turned 46. And more than ever, I'm realizing the importance of back-to-school shopping. I used to say to my wife, like earlier on when our kids were younger, like, well, why would we take them back-to-school shopping? Like, we have no money. And like...
Dude, that's what I'm saying right now. Not only that, why are we spending a mortgage payment on back-to-school supplies?
This
is
let's do a little yin and yang, because that's what I used to be. Like, Danielle, we have no money. Like, are we sure? Do we need to buy our kids back to school? But then I'm realizing now that I remembering from my childhood, I think back to school shopping really helped me with the transition. It helped me to feel confident going and starting school. It was like a part of like a a rites of passage. And I'm not saying this is for everybody financially,
Yes.
but I just think young Sean, if young Sean was here and we asked him, hey, how important is back to school shopping for you? He would have said, yeah, I love it. I love getting new clothes. It's like the only time of year I get to like have some time. I get to pick what I want, and it gets me ready for the school year and gets me excited. I think it's really key, especially for some kids more than others.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Like, get your kids involved in the back to school shopping. We tried that; it didn't work out too well for the actual like clothing part of it. They're like, I don't care what I'm wearing. Like, it was, but what was cool about it was the school supplies.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah,
I
the
want
school
this
supplies.
backpack.
Yes.
I'd like these shoes. For me, I remember it was all about the 3-ring binder.
Yeah,
Remember the old
definitely.
school 3-ring binder? Like,
Yeah.
I had to have the cool 3-ring binder because I knew I was going to bust
Yeah.
that thing out every day.
I saw a cool picture. It was a kindergartner, and he was wearing a super oversized shirt. I just saw it a couple hours ago. And the shirt said, like, class of 2027. And I thought to myself, that's a cool idea. They're just going to probably take a picture with that little kid in that same shirt every year. But then I did the math. And I said, that math is all wrong. If that's a kindergartner, the shirt should say class of 2037.
Oh,
That's
how was you
exactly what
feeling
I'm
then?
thinking. Dude, that kid's going to graduate high school in the year 2037. Is that just me, or does that kind of sound like really long from now? 2037.
Dude, very long for now. Those shirts kind of give me heart palpitations. I remember we visited my alma mater college with our kids, showing them the cool experience of what it was like to be on campus, and showing them, their mom was a cheerleader and captain of this cheer squad. So we went down, we met the cheer team, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, when did you graduate?" And Danny's like, 2008, and the girl was like, I wasn't even born yet. We're like, oh my gosh.
Oh gosh, right. All right, my next tip for you
Hilarious.
is really, you've heard this tip before, but I'm going to tell you a personal story of a client to help bring this tip home. The next tip is to sit down with your kids
thank you.
and to really ask them what are their goals for the year. And if you've got young children, they probably
I
won't
like
know
that
how to
idea.
answer because they don't know how to talk about goals. But imagine if you were to do that every year, by the time you have that child becomes a high school student, they're really going to be able to articulate goals. So talk about their goals, but then also talk about your expectations. I never really had to do that with my two older daughters, talking about their expectations, because they always met the expectations. They've always exceeded them. But I've realized that for many kids, they do not meet the expectations. So it's sit down and be like, hey, so here's what I'm thinking. I know math is really hard for you. No, that's not true. I have done this with my kids because math. My oldest kid in particular, I said, Maddie, the expectation is a C. You've got to get a C in math. If you get anything lower than C, we're going to have issues. We're going to have to get you a tutor. You're going to have to study more.
Right.
And so you set the expectations and about, hey, this is how we're planning out the fall. You're going to play lacrosse, you're going to play soccer, you're going to swim, polo, whatever it is, and you're going to get this much screen time, and this is what we expect from you. And then put them in a position of success so they can meet or exceed those expectations.
I don't know if people still do this anymore, but I remember my grandpa would sit me down when I was young, and he says, hey, Jordan, for every A you get, I will give you $5.
Love it.
Right? And so there was like this incentive of like, oh, I want to try hard, because then whenever I get a report card, whether that's quarterly or half yearly, I would bring it to him, be like, hey, I've got 6 A's, and he'd bust out the money, and I'd be like, sweet, I can go buy something.
I'm going to blend these two together. That's my next tip, Jordan. The way you motivate donkeys is by carrots and sticks. Carrots are sweet, and sticks, slap them.
Slapping them on the...
One of the best ways to motivate our children is with carrots. Think about ways we can inspire them to push themselves. Let's say your kid is really into baseball, and every year they're expecting you to buy them a $300 baseball bat and $125 shoes. Or your kid is a soccer player, and they're expecting you to buy them all these things. They're expecting you to take them on all these vacations. They're expecting you to buy all these things. Instead, be like, hey, I'd like to, here's what I want you to do. If you push yourself this school year with these things, then in exchange, I will do this. And this is how we motivate salespeople from all around the world. Salespeople don't get any salary, and they get based on commissions.
Commissions, you're
so
right.
you want to hear it? You want to hear an interesting story? Okay, so I have a client. I'm going to protect all their
Yes,
privacies
please.
at all time, and really challenging
Sure. That's okay.
12-year-old boy. And the boy has been kicked out of
Okay.
one school and almost got kicked out of another school because the kid. I
Can
think
you
I
say
can.
for what?
So the kid is getting bullied for being, because he's like half, probably like Southeast Asian, half white. So sometimes he gets
Okay.
bullied for the color. But
So
he's
it's
also
racial
getting,
bullying.
bullied by kids of all colors, right? So he's not just being bullied by white kids. He's just getting bullied because that's what happens in middle school. You get bullied, right? And then his coping
Sad.
mechanism, he does not run away. He does not punch them. He says like these super racist things back to them very loudly that everyone can hear.
Oh.
So he will get bullied, and sometimes it's about his size, sometimes it's just being teased, sometimes it's just normal bullying, sometimes it's about how he looks, and he comes back like tenfold with like hardcore racist stuff back to the kids. And he's been expelled. And he almost got expelled from another school. You with me? Any questions so far?
No, I'm just thinking how hurt people. That's
exactly.
That's tough. I'd love to hear
Well,
your
lots.
advice. What do you tell someone like that? Like my question is, what is that? Yeah, what is that word going to do once you say that to them? You think that's going
Well,
to put a bully down? Like
What
that's
the
just
kid
going to ramp them up
believes
even
is
more.
like, I have to defend myself, and I can't just let them get away with this. I have to punish them. That's what he believes. And he also believes I can't stop this. Like if someone bullies me, I have to say this back to him. And the parents are very perplexed by this. And so I'm giving the parents lots of parenting tools, but I'm going to share a couple that I think would be really good as we talk about how to set our kids' expectations, how to give them carrots, and how to help them just thrive in challenging situations. It's kind of all connected to that. You with me? So one tip that I said to them, I said, here, why don't you make a plan with your son? Anytime he feels like he's getting bullied, he can call you, he can text you and say, Mom, I need you to pick me up right now. I'm about to swear, I'm about to cuss, I'm about to say something racist. And I will drop everything, son, and I will come and pick you up. I want you to raise your hand and say, teacher, I have to use the restroom. And I want you to get away from those kids. Do everything you can to not say the racist comment. You can't be saying anything racist. See how far you have to go sometimes?
Yes, remove yourself from the situation. Yes, and saying, I
will help you because
remove yourself
what
from
wouldn't
the
be as
situation.
helpful if the parents say, look, you say one more racist thing, you're grounded for a month. No fortnight. Like that kid needs help, The kid's got a problem, right?
Right.
The kid's got a problem. Now,
And when you say give these carrots to kids to help them thrive, right? Whether it's financial or whatever, it doesn't have to just be about grades, right?
Exactly.
You're saying it
So
could be
here's
about social life. It could be about
here's the
situations
carrot.
like this.
If this kid can go 2 weeks without like saying like cussing his parents out, or because that's something he struggles with too, or like getting a referral because he's starting high school, well then they're going to take him to this special like video game tournament. And if he can go 2 months without getting referral or kicked out of school, then they're going to get him something even bigger than that. And they're going to ask him like, what do you want? They're going to try to say, hey, we're on your on your side, we're on your team. And before you judge this kid or this parent, the child was just recently diagnosed with OCD. So that makes a challenging situation even more challenging, right?
Sure.
So we're trying to see if this.
I love the advice. I love that. It's almost like distraction, right? It's like we're trying to distract to eventually build stronger tools down the road. But in the first point of this whole thing is to stop what's happening.
Carrots with your kids? Like if you do this, I'll buy you this?
No, not really. And as I'm talking about this, I'm like, they ask me for stuff all the time. I'm like, all right, if you're good, but now I need to sit down. Like, I'm going to do it today. We already started school. I'm going to sit them down. Be like, hey,
let me
what do
see
you
if you
guys
can
want
help
to do
right
this
now.
year? What are you planning? Hey, I know
Yeah,
you've
tell
been
me
asking for
one
this.
thing you want
do
your
this
daughter
for me.
Yeah,
or
tell
I'm
me
gonna give
one
this
thing
for
you want your daughter to change or grow in. Tell me one thing you want your son to change, stop, a pattern. Maybe it's treating each other better. Maybe it's a grade in math. Maybe it's teasing
Gosh,
each
that'd
other,
be
hating each
great.
other. Maybe it's getting off the screen quicker. Like, tell me one thing that is kind of annoying with one of those kids.
Well, they bicker all the time. So
Bickering,
I think
yeah.
if we could get that to stop, it's always arguing.
Yeah.
We just recently, my wife took our daughter on a mother-daughter trip, and I just had the two boys. And they get back, and my wife's like, how was it? I'm like, it was so quiet.
just
There
the
was no
boys, yeah,
fighting.
yeah.
It was amazing. I loved it. And it's because we removed the two people that were born in a
Right.
womb together and have
Yeah.
shared a life together, and they're just finally like, I
Yeah.
want my freedom.
Yeah.
So I'd love it if I could help provide more freedom and limit
like, here's
the
like-
the
here's
fighting.
what,
I think
like,
that'd be great.
This is for all parents everywhere. Like, let's say that you're a family and you have a routine, and part of your routine is after school, your kids get an hour of screen time, and then they go to soccer. They come home, do their homework, and they go to bed. And some days are better than others, and
Yep.
sometimes, and your child has, sometimes they have bad days where they're like not getting ready on time. They're not ready for school on time. They're bickering with their sibling. So instead of just keeping that system going, something creative you could do is say, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do something special. If you have challenges with bickering with your sibling this week and not getting off the screen on time, well then we're not going to go to soccer this week. That's the stick. That's the consequence. But if you do really well this week with your routines, getting ready for school on time, well then I'll take you out to ice cream 2 times this week." That's the carrot. All right, I'm not
heck yes.
advising parents to do this,
For breakfast,
right?
even.
But it's just like this.
No,
this is
I
the type
know.
of
These are
creativity
examples. I
that
get it.
some kids really need. They need parents to like stretch and be
Sure.
like, "Okay, what do I need to do to get this kid on school on time? Stop
Right.
touching his brother," stuff like
Right.
that.
And what's cool is if you get them involved in the goal setting process, it like gets them something to
Right.
look forward to. Like, hey, whether you want to sit down and do a little journaling, hey, write down the top 5. Sometimes we do that for the holidays.
Oh,
Hey,
that's a
write
good
down your
idea.
Christmas wish list. We're gonna send it to Santa. But
Yeah.
like throughout the year, we need to be like, hey, throughout the school year, let's write down some of the stuff that we
Yeah,
want
good
to
thinking, man.
accomplish.
All right,
and
tell
we'll do
us
it together.
one
It's
or
good
two
stuff.
more tips you have.
Okay, number one is it's important. The back to school photo is important, right? It's like I got to
Yeah,
get my first day of school photo in, especially for all the moms and Instagram and all that stuff. It's like here's what they look like and they're aging appropriately. Here's what they want to be when they get older. And I know that's a big deal, but here's the thing. The morning of the first day of school
Oh,
is pure
yeah.
chaos, bro. It's pure
is.
chaos. So take the first day of school photos
Oh,
the day before.
genius.
All right, get them dressed
Oh, my
up, comb their
gosh.
dang hair. You got all day. Use the
Oh, my
right
gosh,
sunlighting
too
for your,
good.
sunlight and the best lighting, and dress them up in their
good.
outfits and take
Too
the dang
good.
photo.
It's
All right. The next one is for all you dads out there and moms too. Like, we know how important it is to have this relationship between the parents and the school, right? I encourage folks, if they can, to do the PTA stuff, the Parent Teachers Association. Volunteer at your school, help out with parties. The more you can show face, the more you have to say when
good.
things come
That's
up
good,
in your
yeah.
kid's school, right? And I know this is maybe more for elementary than it is for maybe middle and high when it's more, you step away. But for those younger years, dads, I know it's hard for, when you just look at the amount of people in the PTA, 99.9% are women, right? And I get that. But for dads, I need you to step up too. If they're asking you to do a career day,
that's cool.
do a dang career day, okay? Try to help out as much as you can. Go to the school. If they need you to drop off supplies, you be the one to do that to show that you're a full family
That's really
dynamic to be there
inspirational,
for your
man.
kids.
Yeah, that's really nice. You got to imagine too that a kid just seeing their parent on campus and being involved, that's got to mean something to a kid. And if you're a kid who's struggling with the rules or following the rules, it's got to mean something to have your parents still around, meeting the teachers, being a positive bridge between that. So I got another tip for you. When you think of the IQ of a surgeon, are you thinking it's going to be low, middle, or high? Very high.
You would think
right?
high.
I mean, you got to think that if you're
Correct.
a surgeon, you're like pretty dang smart, and you're not only smart,
Yeah,
but you
they can retain
like,
a lot
have
of knowledge.
work ethic. You're like the top. You're the cream of the crop of society, essentially. One of them. Don't you agree? So if surgeons
Yeah, I'd agree.
forget things, if surgeons use checklists, can you imagine how much your 6-year-old needs a checklist? If a surgeon uses a checklist, can you imagine how much your 11-year-old boy who stinks, he doesn't even wear deodorant, needs a checklist? Here's my tip.
Right.
Use checklists. I love checklists. I use them every day. But what I'm a huge fan of is you can go on Amazon and get these plastic checklists, especially for younger kids. And you
Yes,
can
you
just
can.
write in what you want, or some of them come with like little pictures like toothbrush or move my backpack. And then the kids can just slide them over. And I actually saw this in person up in Sumner, Washington, when I visited my sister recently, and my 2 nephews, they were like, Mom, I did my checklist. And they do a checklist 2 times a day, Jordan. They have a morning checklist.
Like for chores or
Everything.
for what? Like
Yeah,
brush
and
your
it's
teeth?
plastic.
Like what's
and they just
on
get
it?
so happy sliding it over, and they show their mom so they can get their little screen time. These boys love Fortnite. So, dude,
Oh, okay.
big fan of
So-
checklists.
I was just Googling
Yeah.
while you were,
Yeah.
because I was thinking about this actually. And one of my tips was to like use like a color coded calendar because there's so much stuff going on. And sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll remember. The reality is you can't remember. And there are studies out there that talk about how our brain isn't meant to memorize that stuff, and we have to take notes. And I asked, online, and the data comes from James Watson of University of Utah. Only 2.5% of the population actually processes tasks simultaneously. So it's kind of part of the same thing, right? You're watching TV and I tell you to do something, you say, oh yeah, okay, you're going to forget. Like you need to write stuff down. Practice is at 6:30 next week. Okay, I'll remember.
Yep.
And then you forget, right? You got to write this stuff down. You need a checklist
This
as
is
an
kind
adult
of funny.
too.
Ready? October 2017, an interview on an NPR show called Hidden Brain. Atwal Gandandi, surgeon, writer, executive director, and professor of the Department of Public Health Management at Harvard Chan School of Public Health. It's so big I can't even read it. It's so fancy. Discuss how using a checklist
I know what that is.
to remind doctors and nurses in operating rooms to perform simple tasks such as washing their hands and checking to make sure they're operating on the correct path of a patient's body has been shown to reduce deaths
So important.
by as much as 47%. That's wild.
Dude, that's big number. Well, think about pilots.
Wild.
Anybody pilot out there? I mean, the most important thing is your checklist. When you're taking off, you have a checklist while you're in the air, and you have a checklist while you land. You have to do all of it.
And then the next sentence on this article says this, but for some doctors, using a checklist can seem demeaning. I heard doctors are hard to be married to. I heard that I heard the doctor
really?
divorce rate is very high.
Well,
They
some
can
of
be
them,
really douchey. They can be really conceited. I know it all. They
Not
can
all
be
you
know-it-alls.
doctors,
They
but
can
yeah,
be
I can
a
totally
lot of
get
them are
it.
workaholics.
Yeah.
Narcissistic.
smarter than thou.
And
Right.
and then they work all the time,
Right.
and then they feel like they have to be there, and they have no work-life balance. I mean, if I was married to that person, I would not want to be
Right.
married to them either. But that's it. Yeah.
You know what freaks me out sometimes? When I'm at a restaurant and there's like 12 of us and the ladies or the guys not writing anything down. I'm like, you're going to screw up our order. And they, you know what I mean? I'm like, you need a checklist. You need to write this down. I'd be more happy if you would just write it down.
I just
know
read
you
an
probably have a
article
good
about
memory,
that.
but
That
please
more and
write it
more
down.
restaurants are demanding their
you?
waiters to memorize the order. And yeah, it's because
To memorize the
It's
order?
kind of
That's
fancy
so
though. When you can
hard.
pull out, like I'm like, dude, you're like a genius. You're like you can. Yeah.
I know it is,
Right.
but I'm just like, please don't mess up when I said
It's just so
this
key. The
and
moral of the
sub
story
that.
is this: it's like if an adult has a hard time remembering things, going from task to task, go on Amazon, make a checklist, go on Pinterest. And I got two more things. And the last one I want to share is so key. So we don't, I think having a homework area, especially for young kids, is so key. They need that structure. The problem is that we got a bunch of generation of kids now. They take their laptop, mostly tweens and teenagers. They go in their bedroom. They sit on their bed. They have no desk.
Right.
Or if they do have a desk, they don't use it. And you can't tell if they're doing their homework, listening to Spotify, on YouTube, looking at pornography, or just doing stupid stuff. You don't know.
True. So you're saying
have a
like
structure
an
in your
office?
home to prevent that, what I just described. Okay. And if you have high trust with your teenager, well, then maybe that'll work. Because that system is only going to work if you have a very trusting relationship with your teenager. That is a fact. Do not let your kid just slip into that.
You know, it's
they're
like
in the room all the time, and you don't know what the heck they're doing.
Before, computers were this accessible, back when I was growing up, we'd had one in the main room that you would access, and you dial up and in AOL, and you'd have to do all that slow stuff. But it was an area that you'd all be together, almost think about the telephone, back where you had the one telephone.
A lot of parents are still doing that, man. They still are.
Yeah, some people are going back to that. And what you're trying to say is maybe, you have your laptop. That's great because you need your laptop. But this is the station that we all work together.
A lot of parents are doing that. It's very key to have that if you have the space. And the last tip I have should not come as a surprise if you've been listening to this podcast or you are my VIP member, because I talk a lot about this, is have a family meeting or 2 or 3, a transition. Have a meeting before school starts. Have a meeting after the first couple days of school. Have a meeting after the first week of school. You're the leader of this family. Bring them together and say, hey, this is our expectations. How can we help you? How do we do? We got to do better here. Hey, you were a little late on this day. How can we do this? How's that going? Do we need to drop any classes? Do we need to add anything? How's your lunches? What can we do? Bring the family together to love each other as a team unit.
That's good.
To solve problems, especially during big transitions like back to school.
Dude, the 2024-2025 year is going to be great. And maybe you're listening to this in 3 years. Whatever year it is, it's going to be a great year.
One of our traditions is that we will pray. I'll pray for each child individually, and we'll gather the whole family together in a family meeting. We'll just pray. Pray for the school year. Pray for our kids. So whatever your tradition is, you are the leader.
I love that.
So parents, Jordan and I love being in your life. Thanks for letting us share these tips with you.